rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, Whiskey Warriors, P1s, one and all. Thank you for joining. Sorry, I got a little distracted. Tommy said hi to me and was like, happy to see me. So I'm always happy to see Whiskey Warriors. I'm always happy to see people coming into the chats and talking and everything else to me. This is fantastic. I see all of the normal regulars running around, and it makes my heart sing with joy that you guys have shown up here to listen to little old me. Anyway, I appreciate it. I do all the time. And in fact, I've had a request from Music Man. Music Man is like, can we get the ice and the, can we get the ice and stuff, the clinking of the ice and things, in somewhere on Wednesdays? Anyway, I'll think about that. I have a feeling that I might be able to figure out something, but we'll have to see. We're going to have to try and see what happens with that. So, let's see. Tonight, I believe I have the NJY youth camp. I think that's how it is. The kids that put together the little band playing thing for the Pledge of Allegiance. So I think I've got them on deck for tonight. So let's go ahead and get them kicking. Let's get them kicking off and started. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you have one, wait, sorry. I got to look real quick here. Oh, she just said sorry. All right. So, hey, really quickly before we do that, I do need to let everybody know, in my normal 9 to 5, I am back on call for the week. So if I all of a sudden drop really fast or say that I gotta go, believe me, it's not anything towards you at all. It's just that my normal 9 to 5, the one that pays the bills, is, emergency kind of situation. So we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep trying to see how this goes, but hopefully it doesn't interrupt too much. But anyway, so yeah, that's what's going on. I am back on call for the week, and so we'll have to see how things go. But if I all of a sudden say, all right, I got to go, folks, I'm going to shut it off and move on because of, that wonderful 9 to 5. But I thought I'd let everybody know that. All right, so let me go back to this. This is the NJY, I believe it's the youth camp, New Jersey youth camp, I think who it is, who does this. So please, if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hats, put your hand over your heart, and we will get the kids to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah!
All right, and I thank them for submitting that. That is, it's a different rendition. I'll give them that. They obviously put it to a beat. So anyway, I do thank you for that. If you would like to hear your version of the Pledge of Allegiance, please record yourself doing it. And when done, send that audio file to me via email to fans, FANS, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at americanperspective.online, and I will accept those. So tonight I am wearing my fantastic logoed gear. I realized I got to come up with something specific for the Whiskey Warriors in my clothing line. So anyway, but for right now, if you just want to pick up some logoed gear and help out a fledgling little podcast like myself, you can go to store.americanperspective.online and you can check out all of my all of my offering. I have t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, hoodies, and all of them have different different logos. I do have 3 variations of the logo. Logo 1, which is the normal one. Logo 2 and Logo 3 are the other variations that are on a few different colors. So you can go and check all of that out at store.americanperspective.online. And by the way, if you are still interested in getting Whiskey Musings logoed gear, you can head off. There's a link. There's a spot, that a pointer per se, that you can click on, and you can head off over to the Whiskey Musings, the old Whiskey Musings store, and pick up the logoed gear there. I still have that active for the time being anyway. So go and check that out, store.americanperspective.online. And of course, I do appreciate the look. All right. So let's go ahead and get this kicked off. Obviously, there's a lot of question about Kamala Ding Dong. That's my name for her anyway. And she is, she apparently, reportedly has enough delegates now to actually clinch the nomination. So, that means that when it comes time for the votes, if the delegates have pledged themselves to her, then, and properly, and that is correct, then she won't necessarily be challenged. I honestly don't think she's going to get challenged. And the reason being is because they have to, as I explained last week, they have to have her on the ticket. And she is essentially, that's it. She is the ticket, because otherwise they lose out on that, 90 million or 100 million or whatever it is that is available in the coffers, or pledged in the coffers. Now, of course, the left has been going on and on and on about how much money she has actually made in the last 24 hours, 24, 36 hours since Biden bowed out of the race. Keep in mind, though, that the actual numbers haven't been presented yet, so they need to do the first filing in order to actually see where this is going. There's a lot of people who are posting on the social medias. So Bonnie, just because I happen to see this, Bonnie says, why do they have to have her on the ticket? Because they will lose the war chest that was put together under Joe Biden if she is taken off the ticket. Okay. So if she's taken off the ticket, all of that money, according to the Federal Elections Commission, all of that money would have to be sent back to the people who donated. They would have to refund it, or roll it over into the DNC's coffers, or roll it over into a super PAC. And in which case, if it goes to one of those two locations, then all of a sudden it becomes money that is subjected to specific rules and all kinds of stuff. So they're not going to do that. I mean, they're literally, they are not going to do that. They're going to hang on to it, and she is going to do her thing. Now, I have heard through a couple of, we'll just call them mediocre sources, that potentially one of the things that Nancy Pelosi was the ringleader behind getting Joe out. And she essentially said, this is Nancy now, she essentially said, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way, and I'll give you 3 weeks to do the easy way. And I guess the 3 weeks were coming up and coming up to an end. And so they decided to go to avoid the hard way and go the easy route. My understanding is that potentially one option on that hard way was that Joe Biden was going to get 25th, which realistically probably wouldn't be that bad now, considering now we have, 6-7 months before the transfer, and we literally have no idea who is actually in charge. I can tell you it is not Joe, but we have no idea who is actually in charge. Now, that being said, Joe Biden did rear his head today. He was seen at Dover. He was seen at Dover Air Force Base to fly back to Washington, D.C. And so he or in his travels back to Washington, D.C. So presumably he is alive and he is somewhat sentient, sort of, I guess. And so, yeah, there we go. So that's just one of those things that is happening. Well, I wanted to wait a little bit, and I'm just going to say this right now. I'm still a little hesitant necessarily to take a look at polling numbers, but considering the fact that this was such a momentous occasion, then yes, we had to take a look at some of the newest polling numbers. And so that's the first thing that we're going to be checking out tonight is the first set of polling numbers. And apparently the July polls, Trump is ahead in 13 national surveys. Now, there is a poll, an Ipsos Reuters poll, that does put Kamala Harris 2 points ahead of Donald Trump. It's a 44-42 split. But the thing about it is that the same poll just last week had them statistically tied at 44-44. So I'm not entirely sure that we can necessarily trust. Again, trusting polls is like, you obviously, the whole point of a poll is not to necessarily look at the outliers. It's to establish trends, and it's to look at trends. And as of right now, it appears that Trump is ahead in several national surveys. And in fact, Real Clear Politics hasn't updated their stuff yet, but they still have Trump ahead in most cases in all kinds of states. And several states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin are still being held up in the into what they consider toss-up territory. Now, I was playing around with the with one of the maps. You can go to 270 to win. 270 to win, and you can, create your own map and stuff. And so one of the things that I did change is based on the current polling that they had, because that's the first thing that comes down. They have the electoral map set up based off of polls and polling that has been going on. And one thing that I did notice is that if, and again, total if, total assuming, total future looking, crystal ball kind of thing. But if the polls are correct, and if Donald Trump can flip Pennsylvania and take it into the red territory, that would be enough at this point for him to hit 270. So I'm just going to say, even with Kamala Harris on the ticket, I honestly don't think that things have changed all that much in the long run at the moment. Now, understand that's assuming that we have the election today. We have several months between now and the the election, obviously. So we have a long time in between. And one of the things that I can tell you is that the Democrat machine on the socials is definitely out and active. They are all claiming that Donald Trump is afraid of Kamala Harris, that Donald Trump is going to be afraid to debate her, that Donald Trump, with his, being a convicted felon, misogynist, and everything else, he's going to underestimate Kamala, so on and so forth. And they're all, they're going to be spouting all their crap realistically, but, between now and obviously the election. Toward that end, though, I thought I would refresh some of our memories about who Kamala Harris actually is, because as I've said in the past, generally speaking, people don't pay attention to who the VP is. They don't necessarily pay attention, and this is part of the reason why, thinking that Mike Pence brought a whole bunch of stuff to the ticket, or in the case of today, that, J.D. Vance is going to necessarily bring a big piece to the ticket. I honestly don't think that's really going to change much because of the fact that we have in Trump, we have a known quantity. We've seen him before. He's been, he was in office for 4 years. He had a, what would be considered a very good presidency. I'm not going to say it's up in the greatness category, but it's pretty damn good. We had, low unemployment. We had low inflation. We had low interest rates. We had all kinds of good things that Donald Trump can emphasize in his campaign. We don't have that necessarily with Kamala as far as her presidential run is concerned. And keep in mind, too, that she didn't even get to the first primary. She did not earn one vote. She did not earn a single vote in the 2020 primary at all because she dropped out before the first primary came up, before the first primary vote. So there is literally nothing in terms of Kamala Harris by herself that can be attributed directly to Kamala Harris by herself as a quote unquote win. But we do have a long litany list of things that she has literally failed at. And so, with that in mind, let's take a look at Kamala Harris as she is in her, by the people that know her the best. And that is the people who used to, or, well, sorry, I kind of gave it away, who used to work for her. So here in the Federalist, there was a report that came out, and apparently they averaged, or they figured out how much of a percentage of her staff has left in her first 3 years as vice president. And this, in the Federalist again, 92% of Kamala Harris's staff has left in her first 3 years as VP. So basically, and they're rounding up, it's 91.5% turnover rate since she became vice president, which was based off of a investigation from a government watchdog organization called Open the Books. And they revealed that on Monday. Of the 47 staff members Harris had hired when she took office in 2021, only 4 are still remaining in her employment as of March 2024. Now, I'm just going to point this out straight up, okay? If you have that high of a turnover rate, that's kind of an indication that you might be a bad boss. Now, not everybody, I mean, not that I really want to necessarily inundate or protect, inundate you with a bunch of lies or protect Kamala Harris. Let's be completely honest. Chances are not all of them, although a good majority definitely have reported this, but not all of them actually left because of Kamala Harris. But that being said, it still doesn't look good to know that your turnover rate is in the 90%, meaning that if somebody gets hired, they have a 9 in 10 chance that you're going to be leaving. So, yeah, this is a huge, huge turnover. And the OTB founder, Adam Andrzejewski, wrote, "Chaos reigns on the vice president's staff. Our auditors at Open the Books quantified an extraordinarily high 91.5% staff turnover rate. And payrolls apparently provide further insight into the staff exodus from Harris's office. The Atlantic reported in October of 2023, Harris's communications director, national security advisor, chief of staff, and numerous aides left within a year and a half of her taking office in 2021. Yeah. Apparently, the chaos isn't getting any better, Andrzejewski wrote. Furthermore, the turnover chaos isn't getting better. In the trailing 12-month period, 24 staffers left. That's almost half of the employees. So, yeah, again, if you have that kind of turnover, that's a big red flag. That would be a big red flag to me, because especially being somebody like President or Vice President of the United States, you should theoretically be good enough at politics and human relations to make yourself likable, which she is not. In fact, the New York Times, people, the New York Times. The New York Times is a left-leaning propaganda rag for the Democrats. And this is what they're saying. They're saying Kamala Harris is the least electable Democrat. Yeah. So the New York Times, the top writers at the New York Times, found that wrote Monday, that Kamala Harris is on a scale of 1 to 10, 0 meaning the person would have no chance of beating Trump, 10 meaning that he or she would crush him. Then on the scale of 1 to 10 also, it means the person inspires no enthusiasm. 10 means that they would love him or her. Let's see, where did I miss where they wrote it? Oh, so in this is the scale. So 0 is the worst, 10 is the best. And they put her electability rating at 4.6 out of 10 and her exciting rating at 5.8 out of 10. So she's not even hitting, for the most part, not even hitting halfway. So, yeah. I mean, she does in the exciting category, but hell, never mind. So anyway, she has a feeble, according to the Times, she has a feeble electoral track record. She struggled badly in 2020 and barely before then won her first attorney general race in California. But she'll benefit from a likely unified Democratic establishment, and she can forcefully press the case against Trump on abortion rights. That's one of the key things that she has been, quote unquote, known for. And I honestly don't think that is a winning strategy. But okay. So anyway, we're just going to have to see. But even the New York Times is saying that she ain't the best in the electoral pool, let's say. So let's take a little bit closer look at some of her assignments and incompletes that she had. Now, keep in mind, Kamala Harris started, honestly, in the public eye, being the arm candy of such people as Willie Brown, as Montel Williams. She was seen, quote, dating both of them, even though Willie Brown, she apparently was dating him or interacting with him in a physical nature when Willie was separated from his wife. Now notice, separate and separating doesn't mean that separating doesn't actually mean that they were divorced at the time. In fact, reports are that when his wife found out that it was her, he dropped her in a hot minute. So I don't know. Anyway, the point is, if we take a look at, how she got where she was and that kind of stuff, forget her, supposed sexual exploits. Let's just throw that up to the curb. But the fact is that she in all of her in all of her campaigns, she's never had a strong candidate against her. In fact, the one campaign where she won, as I just noted her attorney being the AG, she barely won that by, I think it was like 1,000 votes. I don't even think it was really statistically large. But anyway, the point being is that this is a person who has serious problems in terms of the electoral candidate category. And not to mention the fact that her, the number of her wins in office really have boiled down to being the first person of color, female vice president, being the first president of the Senate, because that's her position as VP, who has broken more ties than anyone else in history. Well, those two things, one is based off of her immutable characteristics and the fact that she dropped out of the primary and got picked up by Joe because Joe specifically said he was looking for a black female president. But now, the other being the Senate presidential breaking the tie, that's just a matter of her being in a 50-50 Senate. It has nothing to do with her skills or her capabilities as a politician or an individual. But let's take another close look at some of the other stuff that she's been doing. Well, she's been championing abortion rights. Well, first of all, as I've explained on this program, abortion is not a right. It never has been. It's a medical procedure. But the SCOTUS has literally said in Dobbs that it goes to the states. So any movement on this realistically from a federal standpoint would probably be not taken up. So, and I try and remind people or politicians of that every single time they talk about, codifying Roe. Well, you can't codify Roe because it's in the hands of the states. The 10th Amendment states that. It's pretty damn clear. Well, then she is supposedly tied to voting rights, and she has worked to push the Freedom to Vote, John R. Lewis Act, legislation that Politico boasted was something Harris was using as a chance to make her mark on what was a quote unquote hugely important issue. Okay, well, the bill failed to pass. And it was shown obviously to be entirely unneeded. So it, there goes that. She is an advocate for Black maternal health issues, which again goes back to that whole point that there is a non-federal requirement to have that running in the office. Now, the primary drive for this particular point was that Black women reportedly faced mortality rates that were 3 times higher than seen in white pregnancies. The CDC's measure of these deaths by race shows that from 2019 to last year, that discrepancy has mostly held the same since she introduced that policy. So, in other words, there's no change. But at the same time, there has been a rise in infant mortality rates of Black infants in 2022. So there you go. I mean, let's not even count the fact that she isn't Black. Okay. She's of mixed race descent, primarily Indian and Jamaican. Okay. So there you go. Oh yes, she championed or was championing or being credited for the broadband access expansion. There was supposed to be 16 million homes we're going to be saving on their bills, but apparently, and that was supposed to be the result of 175 million spent on minority institutions, and that was announced in February of 2023. But by summer, she then came back and said there was still a problem with the lack of connectivity. So another $90 million or $90 billion investment was made to connect more homes. And then last November, we heard that there were still too many unconnected. So another $65 billion was tapped. So in other words, she keeps going back to the well for more money, even though she can't, she hasn't been able to finish the project. So anyway, there's a couple other things that are in this list also. This article is, of course, in the show notes, or the description of the video, I should say, and you can go and check that out. Just a couple minor stuff, but let's talk about the major one that she is credited for. And let's just point this out. Okay, she was named the border czar. She was named the border czar. Oh, Midwest Gunner also points out, too, that she was pushing for the electric school buses across the country, which, on that note, many of those electric school buses were sitting in barns because they couldn't get their parts. Nobody knew how to fix them. And it was a complete disaster. In fact, it's still, as far as I know, still going on. Still going on right now as far as that is concerned. But before we hit on the border czar stuff, I do have another look at Kamala Harris from a different point of view. And what I mean by a different point of view is, let's just listen to Kamala Harris's own words with regards to how eloquent and intelligent this potential nominee for the Democrat Party is. Take a listen.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time.
So the importance of community banks is they are, as they are called, they're in the community, led by members of the community. They are people who understand the capacity of the community, the needs of the community, the culture of the community.
Space is exciting.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree that there are things and tools that are available to us to slow this thing down.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
I can imagine what can be too and be unburdened by what has been as well. Kamala. Okay, so in my experience, whenever you see somebody who speaks with extremely long words and says things in such a way that you're walking away from the conversation, you're going, what the hell did they just say? That's a coping mechanism. That is a coping mechanism. And the reason why I say it's a coping mechanism, it's because somebody is relatively moderately low IQ. Okay. That means that they need to up the word count, the sizes of the words, and she's basically trying to sound smart. She apparently is not that smart. She is attempting to sound highly intelligent. Some of those things that she was caught saying in that video, which, by the way, I'm going to credit the Donald Trump campaign for putting that together. And they need to send that out and play that constantly. But the thing about it is that whenever you run across somebody who is of moderately low IQ, who wants to demonstrate that they have a much higher mental acuity and intelligence level than what they actually do, they generally tend to start using very large words and talk in circles like that because they, in their low IQ mind, believe that that is how they are to sound intelligent. She just consistently does this on a regular basis. And I always chuckle and laugh whenever I see somebody either saying it on the news, saying it on the socials, whatever, and talking about, oh yeah, she's gonna just wallop Donald Trump in a debate. Or back when she was still the vice president or running for vice president, oh, she's gonna wallop J.D. Vance in a debate. Yeah. Not gonna happen. I honestly don't believe it's gonna happen. Provided that we can keep it now, as far as, you know, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are concerned, as long as the two of them come and we get very controlled and measured Trump, okay, like we did in the debates, the original debates with, you know, the oatmeal brains, we're going to be fine. We're going to be just fine. And she is oh, she is just absolutely horrible. I can't even imagine. By the way, there was a report a while ago when she first got into office that half the time she didn't even bother attending pre-press briefings when she was coming out to do a press junket. And that her aides were really frustrated with that because she would walk out in front of the press thinking that she knew everything and failing miserably, which is part of the reason why she doesn't do a lot of press junkets anymore. I'm sorry. I have my doubts. I really have my doubts. This lady is, and yes, she is a she. She did say my pronouns are she, her, and I am wearing a blue pantsuit one time while she was at a conference table and introducing herself. I am a woman. I am she, her, and I am wearing a blue pantsuit. I'm sorry. That was probably a horrible, horrible impersonation. But anyway, she just doesn't, she runs around in circles, talks in circles. I would hate to have her behind the, nuclear option button because I think she would have no idea what the hell she's got going on in terms of that. Well, let's get back to her one major job that she was supposed to do. And that is she was named the border czar. Now, for those of you that don't know, the word czar, C-Z-A-R, comes from Russian language. And the idea of a czar, period, was introduced, ironically, during the Obama administration. Obama used that term. He was the first one to coin that term and to use that term, which kind of gives you an indication, I'm sorry, but it gives you an indication that they were anti-American. I mean, just in the language that they would be using, they were anti-American. And, so, the whole idea, and I bristle every time I hear the term czar being used for something in America. That's not what we do. That's not what we do. Okay. At least not Americans. We don't have czars. A czar is a ruler. A czar is a, installed ruler. And well, I mean, let's face it, Kamala Harris did get installed, or she is working on getting installed in terms of the Democrat nominee. But anyway, let's go back and let's talk about her border capabilities, the things that she did for the border. Well, first of all, she didn't actually go to the border for a very long time. And in fact, she was in an interview with, I think it was Lester Holt, where she where she actually said, oh yeah, we've been to the border. I mean, we've been to the border. We have been to the border. And he had to literally correct her and say, well, you haven't been to the border. And she was like, well, I haven't been to Europe either. You know how she cackles whenever she gets called on the carpet or is, you know, uncomfortable or whatever it is. And that, by the way, is just like Joe Biden's tics. If you look at Joe Biden's tics of saying anyway and look and no joke and not hyperbole, those are his verbal tics because he gets uncomfortable and knows that he's about ready to tell a lie. Well, maybe he doesn't know that he's about ready to tell a lie, but still, he is about ready to tell a lie. And so those are his verbal tics. And you can always hear and see that something is about ready to come out. And her verbal tic is when she does that word salad. Her verbal tic, oh yes, I can't forget Outlaw Dogs just pointed out, don't jump. Yeah, but her verbal tic is word salad. Word salads sounding like she is more intelligent than what she is, where she's not saying a damn thing about it. You know, that is her verbal tics and evidence. But as borders are, Kamala Harris never actually spoke to the border chiefs, according to this article in The Federalist. She actually never talked to anyone who was actually in charge of securing the border. And there's two chiefs in the U.S. Border Patrol, apparently, and she never talked to either one of them. Despite the fact that she was named the border czar 3 years ago. So if she was named border czar, and granted, we've been putting, you know, as Republicans, conservatives, whatever, we've been putting all of the blame on Joe Biden because let's face it, Joe Biden has the ability to close the border. He has it under the Immigration and Naturalization Act. I've pointed it out on this program multiple times. It's under Section 212, subsection F. But the thing about it is that he handed that task off to Kamala. So realistically, when we talk about Joe Biden's immigration challenges that he's had, are we talking about him or are we talking about her? And this, I think, is a point that conservatives and Republicans are going to have to point out, is that the entire situation with the immigration policies that we have currently, or lack thereof, are her fault for being the border czar. And if you ask me, based on the things that I've seen that she is supposed to be in charge of, this is the one big thing. The one big thing that she completely failed at. Now, News Nation's Ali Bradley pointed out on X that she just confirmed that VP Border Czar Kamala Harris has not talked with Border Patrol Chief Jason Owens, who had been in that position for the last year. The same goes for the retired Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz, who disclosed back in March that he had never had one conversation with the vice president. Ortiz actually said on 60 Minutes at one point, I was the chief of the Border Patrol. I commanded 21,000 people. That's a problem because he never had one single conversation with the president or the vice president during his tenure. And Harris, of course, was tasked with the Biden administration's response to the southern border crisis, which was reignited by President Joe Biden's election in 2020. In March, Ortiz said that Biden was most definitely sending mixed messages to migrants who planned to cross the border. Well, that would have been Kamala Harris, because she is the border czar. Now, Owens pointed out in the 60 Minutes interview, a CBS interview in March, that the southern border has deteriorated into a national security threat. We know that. And that for him, what's keeping him up at night is the 140,000 known gotaways. So he basically said, and that's just for 2024, by the way. Owen said that if we don't know who is coming into our country and we don't know what their intent is, that is a threat. And they're exploiting a vulnerability that's on our border right now. So this is one of the things that I think the Republicans need to hit her on, more so than just the idea that she is word salad Kamala Harris and being a Kamala ding dong for it. So this to me, if I were the Republicans, I would be pushing for this to be a big, huge point when it comes to her being the border czar, and especially in some sort of a debate, if it happens to actually happen, some sort of a debate for either Trump or, J.D. Vance or whatever, whoever ends up in this case, going up against Kamala Harris, that, we should be looking at that, because as the piece in the Federalist points out, more than 1.7 million known gotaways have illegally crossed the border since Biden took office, which is higher than the 1.4 million recorded in the entire decade from 2010 to 2020, according to the New York Post report in May. So, she needs to, push this down. Now, the other thing, too, is that we need to understand is that in terms of the border, her viewpoint is that we should decriminalize illegal border crossings. Now, she pointed this out on the debate stage, was that she felt that we should secure our border, but we should make it so that anybody who jumps the border doesn't get punished for it. Okay, no offense, but think about, she was the attorney or the district attorney or something, the attorney general, whatever it was that she was prior to becoming a senator. She is and supposedly back then, she was essentially very tough on certain criminals. She didn't want to let them out because they were doing manual labor at one point, the prison system. She also was really big on things like marijuana busts for black men, reportedly. So anyway, the point being is that she herself has stated in the past that her viewpoint is that jumping the border should not be a big thing. So this is just one of her far leftist ideals. If you think that Joe Biden was left leaning, this lady is much more left than what Joe Biden actually started off to be. Joe Biden started off and campaigned as being a moderate. She's not going to be able to get away with that. Not this time around at all. Well, one of the biggest problems that we have in America, and I've been pointing this out on multiple occasions, one of the biggest problems that we have in America as people is that our young do not know enough about our Constitution and our history and our civics. This is part of the reason why things like the 1619 Project grasped and quickly grasped such a big foothold in our young people today. And this, honestly, is exactly where this campus reform article pointed out, is that a new survey claims to show lack of knowledge of American history and civics among college students. Well, here's the actual survey, and you can see, Losing America's Memory 2.0, which this is a civic literacy assessment of college students, is published on July 8th. And so here's some graphs just to give you an idea. This is in the description of the video. It's in the show notes. You can go and take a look. But most students do not know who the president of the Senate is. Now, for those of you who might recall, and here's the options that they put in there for the survey. They put in Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Mitch McConnell, Charles Schumer, and not sure as the options. Well, the biggest choices were between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, each garnering a little less than 30% on both of those. It is Kamala Harris, for those that really want to know the answer. She's the president of the Senate. That's what I just said. As the VP, that's who she is. Now, another highlight that came out of this survey is that almost 1/3 of students think that senators serve a 4-year term. That is false. They serve a 6-year term. The House of Representatives, the what are colloquially known as congressmen or congresswoman, those folks serve 2-year terms. 1/3 of this one, I'm shocked. 1/3 of students are not sure who the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is. You would think that with all of the history making opinions that have been coming out of the Supreme Court and how the press has been vilifying the Supreme Court over the last several years, you would think that this would be a obvious answer. But it's not. Well, there's a 1/3 don't know who that is. Now, almost half of students incorrectly identify Thomas Jefferson as the father of the Constitution. So, just so everybody knows, it's Madison and Hamilton that are the two that are the biggest choices. James Madison being credited for writing the entire thing. As I've pointed out here, Thomas Jefferson was actually in France as our ambassador when the Constitution was written. Thomas Jefferson wasn't even on American soil when the Constitutional Convention was happening. Anyway. Now, this one actually doesn't surprise me any. Less than 1/3 of students know that the legislative branch has the power to declare war. That is not the position of the president. The president can ask Congress to do that, but Congress constitutionally has the exclusive power to declare war. And there's some others in here. You can go and take a look at these, but, and this is the other one. So more than 1/3 of students are not sure who the Speaker of the House of Representatives is, just like with the President of the Senate. They have no idea. So yeah, this is really sad. This is really sad. However, I just want to point out 89% of students, and this is how bad the attention in politics and civics really is, because 89% of respondents on this thing correctly identified Jeff Bezos as the owner of Amazon. I bet if there were questions in that poll or in that survey, I would bet if there were questions as to who Simon Cowell was, who won the American Idol in X year, whatever year you want, and all of that other stuff, my guarantee is that they would be able to answer it. This just gives you an idea as to how bad of a situation we are in when it comes to voting and understanding civics, and how this is why the left in particular, because the left is made up of all these morons, but the left in particular is pissed whenever a constitutional opinion comes out of the Supreme Court, because they don't even understand the Constitution. They don't even understand it. Anyway, So we did get one good piece of news. And I know you're kind of like, well, wait a minute. How did we get one good piece of news? Well, I don't know if anybody remembers, because we've had, all of these lawsuits and everything else and so on and so forth. And yes, Music Man, I do. That is a Saturday night thing, for the history, that is the, on this day in American history. And I do that on Saturdays. All right. So shifting to one more news article. I don't know if anybody remembers, but Hunter Biden did sue Fox News, and the left was just like so ecstatic over all of this. And the reason for the lawsuit had to deal with the fact that, they did an expose, where they did a series called The Trial of Hunter Biden. And that series, an expose, was exposing nude pictures, him engaging in sex acts, so on and so forth. And this was prior to, of course, the lawsuit was filed prior to the whole thing of understanding that the laptop was not quote unquote real. They were questioning as to whether or not the laptop was real or not. And so Hunter Biden, of course, sued Fox News over it. And anyway, as of Sunday, Hunter Biden has dropped that case. He has decided to drop it. It doesn't really say why. It just says that the same day on Sunday, the same day that his father dropped out of the presidential race, the court filing went that he dismissed his lawsuit against Fox News. So obviously there was nothing there. Oh, the lawsuit. Yeah, they were after him. They were really after Fox News for everything, because they were saying that that the lawsuit, that the information being presented by Fox was fake and it was libel and slander and blah blah blah, whatever kind of things there. But Fox News put out a statement when the lawsuit was first reported, and saying this entirely political motivated lawsuit is devoid of merit. The core complaint stems from a 2022 streaming program that Mr. Biden did not complain about until sending a letter in late April of 2024. The program was removed within days of the letter in an abundance of caution, but Hunter Biden is a public figure who has been the subject of multiple investigations and is now a convicted felon. Consistent with the First Amendment, Fox News has accurately covered the newsworthy events of Mr. Biden's own making, and we look forward to vindicating our rights in court. Well, that was right after the lawsuit was filed. Now it seems the lawsuit has been dropped. Yeah. Well, so there you go. Well, they either ran out of money or they ran out of case to prove or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, it seems like lawsuits and lawfare for the Democrats is falling flat on its face, not only with Trump, but also with others as well. I'll be honest with you, I am looking forward to seeing the whole E. Jean Carroll case getting overturned. I would love to see that happen. We all know it's probably going to, eventually, but just think of the left. Just think of the left and all the tears that they would cry, knowing that E. Jean Carroll was lying and lost. Oh, anyway, whatever. All right, folks, that's it for me tonight. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once there, hunt up the American Perspective channel and make sure you hit that green follow button in order to be notified whenever I go live. Also, too, tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, it is Whiskey Wednesday. And so we will see about what we can do with that clinking of the glass that Music Man enjoys so much. Have a great rest of your evening. I got to head out and go get some dog food. So have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you all tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.